Time now for Ridiculous, and tonight we have a do-it-yourself guide on how to transform your life in a very specific way. The Ridiculous presents how to go from fixer to ultimate scapegoat in one easy lesson, because in addition to being, as the president once called him on Twitter, a rat, Michael Cohen is also somehow apparently now indirectly responsible for the disintegration of talks with North Korea. The president tweeted last night, and I quote, "For the Democrats to interview and open hearings a convicted liar and fraudster at the same time as the very important nuclear summit with North Korea is perhaps a new low in American politics and may have contributed to the walk never done when a president is overseas. Shame." The Michael Cohen hearing contributed to the president walking out of talks with Kim Jong-un. I'm confused because I thought it was about sanctions. I wonder what on earth could possibly have given me the impression it was about sanctions.
Was the North Korean demand for lifting of some sanctions the real sticking point here, in that you did not want to do that and they did? And will
it was about the sanctions, but it was about sanctions. I mean, they wanted sanctions lifted, but they weren't willing to do an area that we wanted. They were willing to give us areas, but not the ones we wanted.
Oh, right. It was the president who said it was about sanctions several times. Then fast forward a few days, perhaps a chance to get over the jet lag, catch up with some Fox News coverage, and presto changeo, now it's because of the Michael Cohen hearing, which, I'm sorry, but I'm just not really following the logic here. Is the president suggesting that Kim Jong-un was going to go along with everything he wanted and then watch the Michael Cohen hearing? Because even if that was the case, what part of Cohen's testimony could possibly have any bearing on a North Korean negotiations? I just want to try to think this through. Did perhaps North Korea's dictator decide he could not negotiate in good faith after he heard that Cohen say that Trump once paid someone to bid on a giant portrait of himself? You know, somehow I doubt that. I doubt that that would offend Kim Jong-un's delicate sensibilities. There he is walking past a 7-foot-tall portrait of himself at the Pyongyang airport. So maybe it was this that made the talks deteriorate.
I am providing the committee today with several documents, copies of letters I wrote at Mr. Trump's direction that threatened his high school, colleges, and the college board not to release his grades or SAT scores.
Again, not sure that the murderous dictator of the most oppressive and brutal regime in the world would really care about what the president got on the verbal section of the SATs in the early 1960s. So maybe the president's point was, and if you can at all avoid it, I would recommend not trying to follow the president's tweet logic, especially if you're prone to migraines. But maybe his point was that simply having the hearing was a bad look while he's overseas, and that contributed to the breakdown of, well, actually past the Tylenol, because he said it was about the sanctions. He also went kind of full REO Speedwagon and said it was simply time for him to fly.
It was a very interesting 2 days, and I think actually it was a very productive 2 days, but sometimes you have to walk, and this was just one of those times.
It's like Kid Rogers, the gambler. That was right after the summit. No mention that the Michael Cohen hearing had anything to do with what happened during the talks, because it probably didn't, because we live in the real world, or at least we try to keep some semblance of a grip here on The Ridiculous. And that's it for us.